Today on the channel, it's the return of the Kyle Peterson Top 5 with the top 5 toy lines I regret never collecting. Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for our Thursday tradition, the Kyle Peterson Top 5, where I count down my 5 favorite in order of something. It could be an action figure line, it could be a certain figure, it could be anything out there. And today, we are doing something a little different. Historically, so far in this video series, I guess we'll call it, we've been counting down wrestlers with top 5s, 10s mixed in, and we still got a ton of those to do, and we'll get to them, but we'll pepper in some other things every once in a while, and that's what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to count down the top 5 action figure lines that I wish I was all in on, that I didn't collect, that I wish I would have jumped into, and my regrets to this day I still have on these. And maybe one day I'll pick these up, maybe one day I just will admire from afar as I have been doing. This was kind of brought along by, if you guys have been following me on the channel. If not, what are you waiting for? Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. We got videos about everything, about every single day. Simple as that. But this was brought on by one of the big regrets, one of the big collector regrets I've had out there for many years. And this year in 2021, about summertime or so, I decided it was time to right a wrong. I always wanted to get the Masters of the Universe Classics collection. It was one of my big regrets. Couldn't afford them at the time. I had to, pick and choose my lines, but I always admired those from afar. And I said, someday I'm going to get the entire collection. Well, lo and behold, a person online was selling the complete collection. Yes, complete. And I knew it was my time to jump in and right that wrong in my life. So I grabbed that whole collection. But believe it or not, there's other collections out there that I wish I would have jumped on. I don't know if I'll ever get to them. Some of them are pretty pricey at this point, but we're going to count these down, and we're going to count them down from number 5 to number 1 like we always do. I'm asking for you guys out there, make sure you get your list down below. The top 5 lines you wish you collected. Maybe it's something, maybe you've always admired Marvel Legends from a distance, or WWE action figures from a distance. Maybe that's in your list, but everybody's list will be a little bit different. That's the fun thing, but you got to put them in order. That's the challenging part. But let's get into it. Let's dive in. Let's talk about the top 5 action figure lines I wish I collected. All right, we kick it off with number 5, and we go from number 5 to number 1. Number 1 is the one I wish I collected the most, of course. That's how we're doing this, so make sure you do it in that same order when you put it in the comments down below. But starting off at number 5 is a recent toy line that has come out in about the last year or so. And man, it's got me Googling it via the internet ever since the day these were announced, and as I see them come out from exclusives and regular lines and stuff like that. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Storm Collectibles. Yes, Storm Collectibles. Basically, all I dabble in the Storm Collectibles world is some of their wrestling figures out there. But they have a lot of cool stuff. Mortal Kombat, I have a few of those. Pricier figures, but man, they're usually slam dunks. And these at number 5 for me is Golden Axe via Storm. Golden Axe, a Sega Genesis, Sega. I think I had it on Sega and Sega Genesis back in the day. A video game that I loved. It's awfully popular, of course. It's got figures to it, but it does fly under the radar of, the big ones, the Donkey Kongs, the Marios, the Zeldas, the Grand Theft Autos. But there's a lot of people, especially of my age, that love them some Golden Axe back in the day. I remember there was an arcade at a gas station not too far from my house, and I would play it there. Played it, of course, at home when you could buy the cartridges at home. I've got the throwback Sega Genesis, and it's on there, and I've played that with my kids. I've always enjoyed Golden Axe, and when I saw a toy line was being released via Storm Collectibles, and I saw that big Death Adder figure, I saw the Axe Battler, the dragons, with Chicken Leg, the trolls, all kinds of stuff, the skeletons. So many cool figures, but it gets to the real point. How many lines can you collect? How many lines can you afford? And how many lines can you display? And something's got to give. Even for me, I know I'm an absolute maniac. I'm, at a different end of the spectrum of a lot of action figure collectors. I totally get that. But even for me, I got to draw the line somewhere. There's got to be a monetary line drawn, a display line drawn, and a collection line drawn. And unfortunately for me, Storm Golden Axe is where I had to call it quits. I've had them in my cart so many times over the last year or so, and then cancel last minute. I said, I just can't get into another line. How many lines can you collect? Well, how many lines are you going to release? No, I just can't do it, and I don't think I'll ever do it. Who knows? 5 years from now, I might say, oh my gosh, I really regret not getting that. But I've held off at this point. I guess out of all 5 of these, this is the most realistic one that I could jump into and possibly collect. So I guess never say never on anything. I've learned that in the action figure game over my 30 plus years of collecting, if that's true. Yeah, I guess it is. It's unbelievable how long. 30 plus years of collecting. But Storm Golden Axe, like I said, Storm quality is always great. Cool characters, cool video game I have an attachment to. I just can't pull the trigger. But man, do they look good. And I'm going to continue to admire those from afar. And for those of you guys that are collecting out there, I hope you're enjoying those figures because, man, they look awesome. But for me, the number 5 toy line I wish I collected is Free a Storm, and it's the Golden Axe line. All right, we're counting it down, and we're at number 4 now of the toy lines I wish I collected. And number 4 is my all-time favorite property. Yes, you guys probably know where this is going, and it's G.I. Joe. And it's a toy line I bought a couple of figures at, but then I said, you know what, I can't get into this line. I have too much other stuff going on. It's just not going to be able to work out. And this is the G.I. Joe line from about 2010, 2011, I think it was. And it was the G.I. Joe Pursuit of Cobra. A very interesting line in the 3 3/4 G.I. Joe variety. Very modernized. This felt like G.I. Joe Classified's what we got right now, where it's a nice futuristic kind of newer modern day take on classic characters. That's how it felt in 2010, 2011 with this Pursuit of Cobra line. I was all in on the G.I. Joe Figure Subscription Club, but at 2010, 2011, that is, just a different time in my life. I was just getting married, just having our first kid, so you know how it goes. Finances aren't all there. I'm, still early in my work career. You're just getting settled. I think I bought my first house back then, so finances weren't allowing me to go get everything. I was getting the G.I. Joe Figure Subscription Club and some G.I. Joe stuff. I was all in on the Jakks Class Superstars series, and I started to buy a couple of these Pursuit of Cobra figures. I remember I had Quick Kick, Spirit, Rakondo were some. They had a sick Alley Viper. I had a few of these, but I ended up selling them. I said, you know what? I just can't do it. I can't do it. These kids, they need diapers. That's what I said. And I said, how can we work this without diapers? Can we get printer paper and fold it and tape it up and use that instead? Maybe that'll save money, give me more figure budget money. Didn't work that way. My wife wasn't aligned in that. So I had to bow out on the Pursuit of Cobra. But like I said, very cool packaging. It felt like a modern update to our classic Joes that we knew in the animated series, the comic books, the cartoon. But like they said, the Quick Kick, the Spirit, I mean, they had everybody. They had Duke, they had all of them. They had some new characters put in there. Like, was it Shadow Tracker, Jungle Viper Tracker? I remember that one was really cool. A lot of cool figures and a pricey line this day and age. These figures have shot up over the years. A big regret for me because I was all in. The 3 3/4 were really my predominant Joe line. I guess they were the only size Joes back then, really. So it was something I really wanted to get into, but just like I said, you can't collect everything. It depends where you are in your life. If you're a young college kid, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video, you just don't have the finances, and you got to be smart. You got to be able to pay for your mortgage, pay for your car, pay for your food. You got to take care of that stuff first, even though we all make exceptions every once in a while. I can say I've skipped a meal to buy a Jakks Class Superstar. Well, if I skip these 2 meals, that'll give me enough money to buy this exclusive. I've done that before back in the old days, and I'm sure some of you guys have as well. But the G.I. Joe Pursuit of Cobra line, an awesome looking line. Beautiful cards, beautiful figures, and a huge regret for me. The one that I just don't think I'll ever go back to, though, unfortunately. So there it is. Number 4 for me, the G.I. Joe Pursuit of Cobra line. All right, we've come to the number 3 on the countdown, and now we're at the halfway point. You got your list together? Like I said, make sure you put it in the comments down below. But number 3 for me, we all have those toy lines that we really were hoping to collect. We were really excited for, and then we realized maybe we didn't like it or wasn't up to our expectations at the time, or maybe we didn't have the finances for it. And this toy line came out, and I believe it was 2002. And to set the stage for where I was at that time, 2002, I was halfway through my college career. I was working 2 different jobs. I was in a town that had a little Walmart, a little Target, and a Hastings book collectible store, and a comic book store. So there wasn't tons of opportunity like I have now to travel all over the place and stuff and look for stuff. And I was a college kid, so gas prices, paying your car, you don't have time. I didn't have the time with all the workload I had going on, and I didn't have the finances to be driving all over, spending gas looking for stuff. So my collecting was pretty sparse in the early 2000s. 2000 to 2005, I just dabbled. I dabbled the Ultimate Warriors, the Terry Funks. Some of the stuff I really liked I got, but I was by no means a completionist of any line, and there was a lot of lines I missed during this time. And one line I missed for two reasons. It was the He-Man line of 2002. We all remember the 2000X He-Man series. I believe it was on Cartoon Network back in the day. So He-Man is what brought me to the dance. That's what brought me to playing with action figures as a very small child, about 3 years old. He-Man was the first toy line I collected. I loved He-Man. I love He-Man to this day. And there was a long gap in He-Man leaving the shelf, 89, 90, somewhere about there, all the way up to the early 2000s. And I was very excited at the time. You know, I did have cable. I had free cable in my apartment. What a great perk from that apartment building, but I had free cable. So I was very excited. I was anticipating this new He-Man series. And for whatever reason, at the time, putting myself back into 2002, I was not feeling that cartoon series. It was the animation style was not what I was wanting, which is very funny now because I have recently went back and I watched like the first season under protest a little bit just because it was on and I dropped out, but I've went back and I've been watching those He-Man episodes and I like it so much more now than I did back then, which is a little strange. So it was very interesting. Your time and your place or where you are in life really affects some of your collections out there, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have some of those same instances somewhere in your life. But 2002, there was the cartoon series. Then they had the action figures made by the Four Horsemen, some of the greatest action figure makers of all time, Mythic Legions, Master Universe Classics, and then these. For whatever reason, much like the cartoons, I saw these He-Man figures and I said, these just look like hot garbage. And I don't know if it was some of the prejudice that He-Man should look like the vintage He-Man figures. This is not what it should be. And I think that does hold on to this day, as we see a lot of people that are all in on Origins but want nothing to do with classics or Revelation type figures, because for He-Man, that is their He-Man. And I think I had some of that back in 2002 without knowing I had that maybe. But those He-Man figures, they just didn't do it for me. And usually I would at least, during that time of my life, like I said, I'd dabble on a few things. I would have bought at least He-Man and Skeletor, but I passed. They just didn't interest me. The cartoon turned me off. And so it was a hard pass for me. It's just not something I was going to do. And those figures went to deep clearance. If you were a buyer back then, you could have got them on clearance. You could have got them very cheap and everything else. Well, the years went by. Masters of the Universe Classics came through. One of the greatest toy lines of all time. Came through. Now we're in Revelations, Origins, a new He-Man cartoon. There's multiple He-Man cartoons on Netflix right now. He-Man Renaissance, and I'm here for it. I'm all here for it. I love it. But I didn't feel these at the time, but now, through years later, about 20 years later, I'm kind of a little itchy, I guess we always say in the figure game. I really would like to get those. I would love to complete that 2002 line, but I look at the prices of these figures now, and He-Man that was $4 on clearance in the clearance bin is now $100 mint on card, and it's to the point where it's astronomical. Masters Universe Classic, much more expensive, but I had a lot more fondness for those. That really hit me where I wanted to be hit in the collector arena, I guess, so I was all in. I spent a god-awful amount of money buying that whole collection. I just don't know if I have that in me for the 2000 era He-Man figures. I don't know if I like them that much to spend $100 a figure or $50 a figure, something like that. If I could find a loose minty collection at a great price, maybe I would entertain that offer. But it's funny how 20 years later, all of a sudden I do kind of like these. I see these in these vintage toy stores and toy shows and stuff. And, you know, they kind of make me smile out there. So I really do regret not getting those, especially since I have a complete Revelations, Origins, Classics collection. Never going to get a vintage collection. It's just, that's too much of a pain. But same with these 2000s. I just don't think it's in the cards for me. And in hindsight, knowing how cheap those things were back then, maybe I would have made a different effort. Maybe I would have picked up some more hours at my second-time job to pick up those figures on clearance. But that's the past, and it's the past for a reason. We got to move on. But it is coming in at number 3 on my action figure lines I regret not picking up back in the day. Now we're down to it, the top 2. Let's take a look at them. All right, guys, we're at the top 2, and I think the top 2 might surprise you. I don't know if anybody will be able to guess these top 2, but we'll see. We'll see, and I'm interested to see what your top 2 are as well, so make sure you put them in the comments below. But number 2 for me is an interesting one, and one thing about me is I never give up. I never give up. If I ever have a goal or a dream or whatever you want to call it, I go until I get there, and I never stop, and I'm a man of my word, and I never break my word, you see that every single day with my daily Star Wars unboxings on the channel. Cheap plug for those. I promised a daily video in 2021, and I have not missed one day of daily Star Wars videos in search of that Guinness Book of World Records. So I never give up, and one thing I never give up is TV shows, no matter how bad they are. If I'm in from the start and I've loved them for a few seasons, I don't drop out. I'm like, I'm seeing this through. I don't care. Even in some of those series, there's tons of series that have got terrible over the years. Old Kyle, he's not bailing. He says, you know what? I've watched every episode. I'm not going to miss it. And we always talk about Kyle never watching a lot of movies. There's tons of movies I've never seen. But as far as sitcoms and TV shows, man, I've seen about every single sitcom and TV show from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've seen every single episode numerous times because I love a half-hour format. Not a big fan of an hour and a half, 2 hours, or longer. But one TV show I've stuck with from the beginning, bringing this full circle here, goes back to the 80s when I was a little kid. And I remember distinctly watching this from the get-go, loving it from the get-go, when it just had a bit piece in the Tracy Ullman Show, the Fox TV series, kind of a skit comedy kind of show out there. There would be little clips. And what I'm talking about, a lot of you guys probably already know where I'm going here. We're talking about The Simpsons, the greatest cartoon of all time, possibly. Or as far as network TV goes and stuff like that. It's been on for as long as most people have been alive that probably watch this video. My kids out there, and probably you guys that are in your 20s and stuff, you don't know life without The Simpsons, which is really crazy to think about. And we all know how great those first 10 years of The Simpsons were. But Kyle, he's never missed an episode of The Simpsons. It is a Sunday ritual for me, no matter how bad it is or whatever. My fandom has waned, but I still watch every single episodes. My kids absolutely love it, so that does help. Sundays we'll watch that. They love Bob's Burgers too. That's another one I've never missed. Not quite as long as The Simpsons, but we watch that every Sunday, so I'm still watching The Simpsons. I've always loved The Simpsons. I've been a big fan of The Simpsons, so you know where this is going. It's The Simpsons Playmates line, and we're going to have a little asterisk on this one too we're going to talk about. But Simpsons Playmates line came out 2000 to 2004 or so. 200 plus figures, play sets, dioramas, so much cool stuff. And it's one of those things that I've admired from afar for many years, especially when they came out. And we talked about it with the He-Man figures. That was my college years right there, having no money stuff. So I didn't have money to afford these Simpsons figures. And there you can find those at toy shows, toy stores to this day. But it's such a huge line. Like I said, over 200 figures, but just really cool. You can really build out a whole universe. You search YouTube, you search the internet, you can find so many people with awesome collections displaying them all. I'm at the point in my life where I don't have room for that collection, nor do I want to go back to that collection. It's kind of a moment in time that was done that I'm really sad I missed out because it looks like a ton of fun and still fairly reasonably priced. And I think you can buy complete sets. They come up every once in a while. But I just don't see me going down that road. But man, what a collection those were from Playmates. Just really cool. And like I said, if I would have been a little bit older, out of college and stuff, I guarantee I probably would have jumped into that line. But it was just one of those moments in times that I couldn't go back for. But that being said, we do know Super 7 has a brand new Simpsons line. I held off and I did not do that. We talk a lot about inflation and price increases and business hat stuff every once in a while on the channel. And that was one of those ones where I said I'm dropping the 3 3/4 most Star Wars. I'm dropping 3 3/4 Marvel Legends. The other one I said I'm not going to jump into The Simpsons because of price increases all over the place. I do regret it a little bit, but it is what it is. You can't collect it all. I would really love to jump in on the Super 7 Simpsons. I would love to, 4 figures a couple times a year, not terrible, but every dollar counts in this action figure game. So I already have that regret. So future regret will probably be, I wish I would have jumped into the Super 7 Simpsons line back in the day. But then here's another one, and maybe some of you guys know about this, maybe a lot of you guys do not. But in 1990, the first Simpsons action figure line came out via Mattel back in the day. A white carding, similar but different from the later Playmates one. But a lot of people, when they think Simpsons toy figures, they think those Playmates, and rightfully so. It's the most successful Simpsons line of all time. But the original one, which I think had 2 series and some like foreign exclusive stuff like that, came out in 1990. And I distinctly remember one of the greatest stories in my action figure hunting days was going to a Ben Franklin's. You Midwesterners know about Ben Franklin. It's like a 5 and dime store. Your grandma would go and get her pharmacy stuff and, you know, knitting stuff. But they also had a toy section. And someday maybe I'll tell this whole story because it was just like one of the weirdest moments in my life. But I'm looking at toys there. My buddy came to my grandma's with me, and we lived, 3 hours from there. And he came for a couple days, and we went to the park, played and stuff. Anyways, he came, and we were at this Ben Franklin's. We're looking at the toys, and the cashier came over. Oh, you guys like toys? Don't forget to check the basement. We got a lot more in the basement. And in the back of the store, there was an old rickety staircase that went down to a basement. And down in the basement, we walked down there, and it was about and this is 1996. I should set the stage. This is 1995, 96. So this is 13, 14, 15-year-old Kyle or something like that. And we go down to this basement, and there's the gondola shelving and everything, but it looked like 1980s Toys R Us. It had all the original G.I. Joes. LJN wrestlers, mint on card. Had He-Man, or, the original He-Man figures mint on card. Had these Simpsons figures on card. Tons of it. Everything. Transformers. All the old toy lines, because that's how it was. It was a different time back then. These mom and pop stores, people didn't travel far out. This is the country. This was where people went to get Christmas presents, birthday presents. So they had big toy sections. There wasn't online ordering, stuff like that, unless you're doing Sears catalog and things like that. But it was just an amazing feat. I remember calling my dad saying, Dad, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. Little old Rockwell City in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, has all this stuff. And I had a little bit of money, but not much. And my grandma was great. She was always looking to buy Kyle a toy. And she said, yeah, Kyle, you get one thing you want, whatever you want there. And I remember just looking at that Roddy Piper LJN. That was one of the LJNs I never found back in the day. And I kick myself to this day not buying that. I didn't pick that up. I picked up a couple of G.I. Joe guys. And I can't even remember what G.I. Joe guys they were, but they were older ones that I missed out somehow. And I made that collection right there. So I don't regret picking those up. But I remember seeing those 1990 Mattel Simpsons figures and just wanting those so bad. I remember saying, Grandma, please, Grandma, I'll be so good. I'll be good. Maybe you can buy those for my birthday in 9 months from now or something. I think my birthday just got over because it was summertime. And my grandma, she stood her ground. And, rightfully so. She can't buy everything. She was buying me one thing. She bought me 2 Joes. Had to call it good. But my buddy that was there with me, he picked up those Simpsons figures, the whole set. And I remember just being so envious of him getting those. I was like, man, I wish I could have got those. And they only had one set there, so I couldn't go back and get them. But that was kind of my first flirtation with the Simpsons figures. And I still remember that regret not getting those then. And then the 2000 series come out. And I'm just like, oh, there it is all over again. So I have a weird feeling about these Simpsons figures. And maybe it's just history is repeating itself for the 3rd time now with me jumping out on the Super 7s. But if I had to go back, I would collect those 1991s. I'd collect those 2000 Simpsons. And it's just a moment in time that I guess I just missed out on for whatever reason. And so that's the story around number 2, the collection I regret not picking up, the Simpsons 90s and early 2000 toy lines. Now we got to take a look at the big one. We're at number 1. All right, we've come to the number 1 spot in the top 5 toy lines Kyle regrets never collecting. Reminder, make sure you put yours down below, 1 through 5, 1 being the one you most regret to the number 5, the least regret. But I think we all have collector's regrets out there one way or the other, and it's always cool to look and make sure you put them in order down below. So number 1, I don't know if anybody has any guesses out there. You might not know. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the channel throughout the year and a half the channel's been in existence. But number 1 for me was an interesting one. It was an 80s toy line, a bit of a sleeper line. Those that know, those that don't. It's one of those properties out there, almost akin to Mask. A lot of people know Mask, but there are some people that don't know Mask. Silverhawks. I don't know anything about Silverhawks. I'd never seen the cartoon in my life, but some people absolutely love it. So there's always those cartoon properties of the 80s when everything had a toy line, everything had a cartoon. But there was one that stole young Kyle's heart at about 7, 8 years old, and I always wanted to get the action figures. I'd see him at the store, I'd see him all the time, but guess what? 8-year-old Kyle didn't really have a job. Kyle couldn't afford stuff. He was at the mercy of his parents, his grandparents, his birthdays, his Christmas. He didn't get to collect everything he wanted to, and rightfully so. If a little kid wanted to collect everything they wanted, I don't know if any parent could afford that. But my dad, he was very generous in what he picked up for me and what we bought and stuff. by no means do I hold this against you, Dad. I don't hold this against you, just in case you were worried. You can only get so much, and I think my dad would steer me a little bit, and he was exactly right. He's always right, as I've found out in my life. I was all in on G.I. Joe. I was all in on wrestling. I was in pretty deep in He-Man, Star Wars. There's only so many toy lines you can collect as a little kid, and this one was one I admired from afar. I loved the cartoon. I always wanted these, but I never dabbled. It was a collection I never jumped into. I don't know if I've ever held one of these figures in my hand. I've had to have loose somewhere, but I definitely never had one. I've never bought one in my life. And what line am I talking about from the 80s? Cops and Crooks. You guys remember this? Some of you guys may, some of you guys may not. Some of the characters, Bulletproof was the leader of the group. I absolutely loved them. Bulletproof was my favorite. There was guys like Long Arm, Sundown, there was villains, Big Boss, a lot of different characters throughout that. And it was a COPS, and it stood for Central Organization of Police Specialists. Just a great animated series. I remember it came on after Ninja Turtles, where I lived at the time, and I loved watching Cops every single day. It was great. It gave me G.I. Joe feels, but a little bit different. It was a team working together to take down the bad guys. Just a great story arc out there, and I just absolutely loved it. It was what I was here for. I wonder if it holds up, because I probably haven't seen it in 25, 30 years at this point. But it's one I always fondly remember, and it's one I always regretted not getting the vehicles, the playset, you know, all that kind of stuff that all of these 80s properties had. Just very, very cool figures released by Hasbro back in the day. Just very cool, and my number one regret, if you can believe that, is my number one regret. And I wonder in this day and age that we see what Super 7 is doing. Super 7's coming out with all these properties. Is there a possibility we'll get a Cops and Crooks modern day update? I think I'd be in for that. I think that would help fulfill that inside of me, that I missed out on that line back in the day, but here's the brand new ones. I don't know. Is there enough Cops and Crook fans out there that would be there for that? I gotta think somewhere. If there's enough for Silverhawks, something I don't know about, because I don't think it was on TV where I live, so my friends, none of us knew about it. We never talked Silverhawks, but Silverhawks is out there. Where does Cops and Crooks fit? Does that fit in that same headspace? Could we one day get Cops and Crooks figures? I don't know, but I know I'm here for it. Just a cool moment in time, and really my number one collector's regret. And I think a lot of people would say out there, I can't believe that. I can't believe that would be your collector regret. But here we are. It's one I've always thought about since I was a little kid that I miss not getting. And I've righted a lot of wrongs over the years, of course. You guys know that He-Man Master Universe Classics, that would have been number one if I didn't go for that. That is just one of the greatest lines ever. I absolutely love those figures. That would have been number one. We talk about the LJNs I went back and got a year or so ago, or 2 years ago, I don't know when it was, whatever time was. I went back and got those, but I had those all as a kid. So these are truly top 5 things I never collected, really. Dabbled in a couple of G.I. Joes, so I don't really count that Pursuit of Cobra stuff, but the rest of these I never owned. I didn't own any of these Simpsons figures. I didn't own the He-Man figures. Didn't own any Cops and Crooks. Haven't owned any Storm Collectibles, Golden Axe figures. So a very diverse, very interesting list, at least from where I sit, which as we all know is right here at this table. But I want to know from you guys, what is your top 5 list? Make sure you put it in the comments. I'm very interested to hear where you guys are at, and maybe you agree with some of my stuff, maybe you don't. I'm sure some of you guys collected Cops and Crooks, and I'm jealous of you guys. I'm jealous. But let me know your top 5 below. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. We got a different countdown video every single Thursday. You don't want to miss it, plus all the other stuff on the channel. And you made it this far, so you might as well like this video, give it the old thumbs up. Follow me on social media at SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson, and of course, ProWrestlingTees.com. Search Kyle Peterson. That's the best way to support the channel. So for the top 5 action figure lines I always regretted not collecting, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.